Hi everyone, my name is Jen Gant. I'm a project officer at Tees Rivers Trust and I'm going to be talking about our giant hogweed project, Tophog. So giant hogweed is a massive problem. In the Tees catchment, it's growing along 96 kilometres of the River Tees and then a further 30 kilometres of our lower tributaries. So it's a massive problem. It reduces biodiversity, it produces a toxic sap that can cause burns and blindness. It leaves the riverbanks bare and susceptible to erosion over winter, and it can have financial consequences for landowners. So the goals of our project are to map and monitor giant hogweed distribution, to reduce giant hogweed throughout the catchment by 80%, to reverse the loss of biodiversity by reintroducing native flora such as native bulbs and plug plants, to restore access and re-establish a safer amenity of great local importance, and to raise awareness and educate people about giant hogweed. It's quite surprising the people that we meet when we're out along the river who don't know how to identify giant hogweed, have never heard of it before, and don't realise that if they simply brush against this plant they can end up with quite severe burns. First of all, this project wouldn't be able to succeed without our volunteers. Volunteers have helped us out so much. It equates to 786 days worth of volunteer time, and this is equivalent to £85,590 worth of volunteer time. 30 of these volunteers have been trained in the safe use and application of chemicals. This is a City and Guilds 2-day course and it's fully funded by the Trust. Once these volunteers have completed this course, they then hold a certificate to safely apply chemicals from knapsacks. This enables us to form a legacy of trained volunteers who will hopefully take ownership of their rivers, and they've already shown that they do this. So once this project finishes in 2023, these volunteers can carry out the work with support from Tees Rivers Trust. We've also been mapping giant hogweed since the project began, and last year I decided to use What 3 Words to do this with our volunteers. So What 3 Words is a free app that you can download on both Apple and Android devices. And this software works by basically covering the globe in a grid that is made up of 3 by 3 metre squares. And each 3 by 3 metre square has a specific 3-word coordinate. No square will be the same. So it's really handy to map invasive species in this way, especially as the app is free. So when you create a login on this app, multiple people can log in at once. You can save folders for different invasive species, and you can simply click on a square in the grid and you can save it as a different invasive species. So the image in the bottom left hand of the screen has 3 different colours. Green is for Japanese knotweed, pink is for Himalayan Balsam, and yellow is for giant hogweed. So we simply showed volunteers how to identify these 3 species. They went out, they walked around the site, they could either be stood on top of the invasive species and they could click on the square, or they could look on the other side of the river, click on the square they could see on the map that was on the other side, and they could save it that way. So because What 3 Words is free and you can download the app onto your mobile phone, it's a much cheaper way to map giant hogweed than using apps such as ArcGIS field maps, which have a cost to them. But it's also handy as there's a converter on the What 3 Words website where you can convert the What 3 Words locations to latitude and longitude, and then you can easily input into your GIS systems and share that data with your local recording centres. We've also been conducting some drone surveys to map giant hogweed, and last year we started this trial, and we will be doing some more surveys across the different seasons to see how well drones can actually map giant hogweed. So Andrew from Drone Flight conducted this survey last year, and he used Pix4D and an AI system to detect the giant hogweed. The left-hand image shows some orange dots, and this was the AI system detecting the giant hogweed, but in the right-hand side of the image, Andrew drew polygons around the areas where we could see the giant hogweed. You can see in the right-hand image that it's quite easy to identify giant hogweed from the drone. You can see the fluffy-looking flower heads and also the fallen stems of giant hogweed. And the drone showed what happened when COVID-19 hit. Basically, we couldn't get out when the first lockdown happened as we were furloughed, and the volunteers couldn't come out and help us either. And the giant hogweed in this field just went crazy and produced thousands and thousands of seeds. So we're going to have to get on top of that this year. But it just shows how quickly giant hogweed can take over an area. And believe it or not, this site has been sprayed many, many times over the years. Another big part of this project is to reintroduce native flora into areas where we've successfully treated the giant hogweed and reduced its presence in various sites. So since the project started, we've managed to plant 44,000 native bulbs and 15,000 native plug plants with our volunteers. We also conducted some trials to see if sowing native seeds in a ploughed area would suppress the growth of giant hogweed. This seemed to be successful, so we secured some funding from Northumbrian Water and extended this trial site to produce a 100 metre by 10 metre strip. And as you can see in the images, there's a before, during and after. And in the drone images below those, you can see there's quite a difference in the vegetation between the ploughed area and the areas that weren't ploughed. So giant hogweed does seem to have been suppressed in these areas, and we'll keep monitoring this in the future. To get easier access to giant hogweed in the spring and summer, we also do some brush cutting work over the winter months. So far, we've managed to do this along 106 kilometres of riverbank, and this work is still ongoing this year. A lot of people don't actually know what giant hogweed is, so education and raising awareness is a huge part of this project. We have an education officer who's conducted 26 sessions so far, and will be conducting a lot more until the project ends in 2023. These sessions are free, they're curriculum based, they involve science, geography and art. And what's really great about these sessions is that the children tend to pass on the information they learn to their parents and grandparents. If you have any questions about this project, please do get in touch with myself or our project manager, John Mushin. We'd also like to acknowledge our funders for this project, and this project is mainly funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Chloe Lawrence is now going to be talking about our biosecurity work on Himalayan Balsam and Japanese knotweed.
Hello, my name is Chloe and I am the full-time project officer on biocontrol for the Tees Rivers Trust, and today I'm going to briefly talk to you about our current project and how it is going. The specific biological control we are using at the moment is for Himalayan balsam and Japanese knotweed. I'm sure you're aware of the issues that these specific invasive species can cause, such as the negative impact on soil quality, which not only causes erosion but a decline in invertebrate species with a knock-on effect of the species that feed on them. And from a financial aspect, they cause thousands of pounds a year to control, so using biological control is a long-term and more sustainable way to control these species. So starting with Himalayan balsam, which we are using a rust fungus to control, we currently have 12 sites throughout the catchment. We do have plans in place to have more sites over the next few years. We are still in early days to see the impact of the rust fungus on seed production and stand density. However, we have seen success in rust spread and infection rates. So here is an example of a few of the rust pustules on leaves of some of the plants last summer. As you can see, they are really varied in what they look like, and we do have plans to go out with Cabby in the spring to monitor to see how the rust has done over winter. We did come across a few challenges in the process, which I think are important to briefly mention. There is a lot of things to think about when choosing sites, and this includes whether to mark the sites or not. We did use canes, but you do run the risk of people taking them or destroying the sites, as well as data loggers going missing. One example is that we did have an instance of a site getting destroyed, which wasn't ideal, but it was just through miscommunication with the landowner, and we did manage to resolve the issue. So it's just something to be aware of. Japanese knotweed does have a similar impact as the Himalayan balsam by outcompeting the native plants and reducing biodiversity, but also comes with the ability to cause structural damage to buildings. The biological control we're using for Japanese knotweed are are these tiny sap-sucking psyllids, which spend their life cycle on the plant. We have currently 5 sites spread throughout the catchment, but predominantly around the Darlington area. Again, we have had a few challenges along the way, such as psyllid establishment, which could be due to predator impacts, such as spiders and birds. It is worth mentioning they can be quite difficult to monitor as they are really small and they move quickly. Normally if you touch a leaf they're gone. And again, we'll be going out with Cabby in the spring to see how they've been over winter and see if they've successfully managed to carry on their life cycle. So that's currently where we're at. It's just a little whistle-stop tour for the work that we're doing at the moment. I do just want to do a quick acknowledgement for the NNSS and Cabby for their support, as well as the Green Recovery Challenge Fund for funding this project. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact myself or my colleague Jennifer. Thank you very much.